Hey YouTube, it's Tony from the Golden Panel. And just like Josh, we decided to sit down today and kind of recap our thoughts on 9/11, 2001, all the way to 2019. There wasn't a newspaper you could pick up or a TV show you turned on that you didn't see something from that terrible day in history. So today we thought we would put our thoughts onto paper and recount that day for ourselves. So many claim that on 9/11, 2001 was the day that shook America. Those people are in fact right. I was in my junior year of high school. I was outside running track in the PE class when another teacher came out, pulled the PE teacher aside, and brought us all inside. And this was several minutes before our class was due to be dismissed. I remember walking into the cafeteria where the TV had been turned on. A large group of students gathered around it, and I was wondering to myself what was happening in New York City. This was all before the second tower was hit. I remember the moment the second tower was struck. The room was silent, and the only thing you could hear was the kitchen staff preparing for their day. When the second plane hit, a large gasp was heard from everyone in the room. Still not sure what to think for myself, I began to watch how others were reacting. It wasn't until I noticed a couple of teachers whispering in the hallway that I knew something far worse was going on than a couple of airplanes that had gotten off course. In the next several hours, more and more news reports were coming in. The airplanes that had struck the Pentagon in an open field in Pennsylvania were now making headlines, and all I could think about was why. Who would do such a thing? Then I got a call from my mom, and this was right after, cell phones were big, and I had my first one. So I was pretty tickled. However, she called and said that she had made contact with the school and that I was to get my brothers and sister and bring them home. When I got home that afternoon, my dad, who had been in the Army, sat us down and told us what was going on. Now my brothers and sisters were probably too young to really grasp the gravity of the situation. My oldest brother was only in the 8th grade. But I knew we all thought, what does this mean for us? A few days later, my dad, who had been retired from the Army, re-enlisted and would go on to serve a tour in Iraq during Operation Iraqi Freedom. 9/11, 2001 had shaken me. This day would shake America, but would not destroy it. For what happened on 9/12 of 2001 was astounding. Americans woke up and became one. There were no Democrats or Republicans. There were no white people or Hispanic people. There were no gay people or straight people. There were no neighborhood spats. We were all Americans. We woke up with an attitude of rising up beyond the ashes of the buildings that had fallen the day before. We woke up saluting the numerous loved ones that were waking up alone for the first time. We were praying for the first responders who went rushing into the buildings as people were running out. We remembered the sacrifice that all Americans made that day, and then we vowed to never forget. Unfortunately, some of us have forgotten. Gone is the September 12th of 2001, and now we have September 12, 2019. Now it is commonplace to hear of violence against race classes, violence against police and other first responders, violence against school children in schools, hate crimes, people calling each other barbaric names from a national stage. There is so much more hate in the world. Now one could argue that we have always had this hate in our American culture, and that on September 12th of 2001 it was just directed towards terrorism. That same justified hate has turned unjustified and goes against everything we said that we would remember. The enemy has gone from airplane hijacker to our neighbor's dog that keeps coming into our yard and taking a crap. The enemy has gone from a network of terror attacking the Pentagon to attacking cops who try to protect our way of life. The enemy has gone from terrorists to ourselves. We stood before a flag that represented unity and freedom on this day in history, and today we tarnish it by hate-filled rhetoric and use it as a prop in social propaganda. We now take for granted the lives that perished that day and the many years later fighting the war there on terror. We have gone from lining the streets with people cheering for police officers and first responders to assassinating them as they sit on patrol in the quiet streets of Des Moines, Iowa, or on patrol in Dallas, or countless other locations across America. We are quick to blame when first responders are not quick enough to respond to structure fires or people trapped in vehicles. We have gone from candlelight vigils in support of people whose lives were snuffed out by foreign terrorists to attending candlelight vigils for school children murdered by classmates. We have gone from grateful to hateful. Let us not forget 9/11 and remember the hope of 9/12. How do we teach the lessons of 9/11 to the current generations? Is it far enough in our past that we teach it as history? I say no. Granted, it is history, but as soon as we write this day in the history books, we begin to forget. Those of us that were in school that day or working will never forget and will most likely remember it as if it had happened yesterday. As each year passes, more and more of the United States of America on 9/11 becomes more of a footnote in history. It is our responsibility to teach this generation and those to come how we not only triumphed over terror, but we united for a common goal. Take off the glasses of 2019 that make you look at the world as dark and gruesome and divided. Try on a pair of 2001 glasses that allow you to see the United States as patriotic, perseverant, and unified. Don't let the day-to-day bureaucratic bullshit get in the way of our most powerful day in history, 9/12/2001. Let's teach the statistics of the number of people who enlisted in the days after. Let's teach the statistics of the number of people who switched to jobs in the public sector. Finally, let's teach the value of how precious life is. Remember those that were lost that day and those that are still dying today because of the effects of 9/11. Americans woke up as one. I know that the people of New York City and the families of those that lost their lives may not have felt the same way that most of us felt. The nation as a whole would feel the economic loss of our stock markets, the fear of flying or commuting by train, the strain of finding alternative transportation for days after as commercial air traffic was closed. We remained rattled by terrorists, but would resist the fear and overcome our losses with patriotism. Nations that were allies became stronger with us, and nations that were quiet became louder in support of us. On the evening of 9/11/2001, President Bush would address the nation, and he closed his speech with this quote: "This is a day when all Americans from every walk of life unite in our resolve for justice and peace. America has stood down enemies before, and we will do so this time. None of us will ever forget this day, yet we go forward to defend freedom and all that is good and just in our world." I end this with saying, let's keep moving forward and defend freedom. Let's support and recognize good and prevail as one United States of America. Thank you.